Hey Mama, welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, wife, mama of 3, and doctor of the PhD kind. On this podcast, we talk honestly about high achievement, burnout, and what it looks like to lead well across home, work, and self. So if you're an ambitious mother scholar who's quietly exhausted by the pace you've been keeping and starting to realize that survival isn't the same as success, this podcast is for you. Mrs. Mummy PhD began during my own PhD journey as a wife and mama. Today, as a postdoctoral scholarly mama working across 2 leadership roles, this work has evolved. It's no longer just about finishing the PhD well, it's about creating sustainable ways of learning, leading, and living at any stage of your journey without losing yourself in the process. If you are ready to move from survival to restoration, you're in the right place. Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. Welcome back to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. Thank you as always for tuning in. Today, I am talking with Dr. Kristine Goins. She is a board certified integrative psychiatrist. She's a physician coach. She is also the founder of Nomad MD, and she spent her entire career, both clinical, but then also in academia, watching burnout destroy physicians' lives. And then she decided to design something different for herself. And what's really interesting is that she didn't abandon medicine. She didn't abandon her ambition. She just redesigned how she practices both of those. So I cannot wait to get into this conversation with Kristine. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. Did you want to share anything else about yourself that I didn't mention, or should we get into it?
Let's get into it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to share a lot. So.
Okay, let's get into it. So, you've worked as a psychiatrist in clinical practice, you've specialized in various areas, and you've held various leadership positions in academia and beyond. And that's all really impressive. But I'm curious, was there a moment where you felt that, you know what, this isn't what I want, this is not the way that I want to actually live my life? Was there a moment that kind of clicked for you?
Yes, there was. Like many of us had this fantasy that once I became an attending and training was finally over, that life would look the way that I thought it would look. I would have all this time and leisure and finally get to, for me, travel was really important and exploring other cultures and countries. And so I thought that that would happen at that point, and it didn't. And I found myself having actually even more responsibility and being like busier than ever, still taking calls, spending my entire weekend doing documentation. And it really created a lot of like burnout for me, exhaustion. I started to have physical manifestations of just the stress and the overwhelm. I would have headaches. I would have chest pains in the middle of my clinics. And my body just part by part started to have like spasms. They started in like my eyelids. Like I thought it was just fatigue. And then it just moved throughout my entire body. So I ended up in a neurologist's office. And I was terrified, but I started off the conversation like, I'm so stressed out. I'm so tired. I'm working so much. And he let me go on for about like 30 to 60 seconds. And he just cut me off. He was like, look, I can prescribe you Lexapro and we can just take it from there. And I was just so confused. I was just like, I don't understand. Like, what is Lexapro going to do? Why Lexapro? And, he was like, yeah, but you're not going to quit your job, are you? We got to keep you going. And for me, especially as a psychiatrist, just hearing someone say that to me, I was like, I can't believe like I would start treating my lifestyle imbalance with an antidepressant. Like to me, it just didn't make any logical sense. And it was the turning point for me. I was like, this can't happen. Like I have to make a decision about the way that I actually want to work and live my life. So after I left that appointment, I sent in my notice. The talk I was going to have with my boss, I wrote him a letter for us to have this talk so I could give my 4 months notice to my full-time academic job. And then I booked a one-way ticket to Colombia.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So there's a lot there that I'd like to unpack. So you mentioned burnout.
Uh-huh.
And you also mentioned, and I also mentioned, that you're a psychiatrist. What does that feel like to be in that position and to experience that and to realize that you yourself need to make this change, even within that kind of clinical disposition that you have?
It was eye-opening. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I love psychiatry so much is because I really do see myself and humanity in every interaction that I have. Like for me, it's never
Yeah.
oh, this person is coming in with, this and I'm me. It's like we all have these interconnections. We're all connected. No matter who we are, there is something that, we share. And, I think it just allowed me to see myself in a different way. Like I can also be someone who is slowly unraveling if I don't take the time to be conscious and present about what my life is and what I really want it to be and how are those lining up? Where's the alignment in the career, in the work, in the life that I really want to have? So for me, it was really eye-opening, and it was refreshing to know also that I could be empowered to make a change, even whether it was a big change
Absolutely.
or a small one.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like you said, we're all human. We're all susceptible to all of these things. And I guess it's about not putting yourself on like a pedestal to say, actually, this will never happen to me because I've got it all together. Like none of us have got it all together.
Nobody has it all together. Trust me.
Nobody has it all together. Exactly. So you went from a full clinical load. You were working over 10 clinics per week, you said.
I would say clinical overload.
Yeah, clinical overload. That's a nice way of putting it. To living what you described as a nomadic lifestyle, working 15 hours a week. And that's not a small change. So when you were still in the thick of it, what made you believe that such a change like that, so starting to lead yourself differently and make different choices for yourself, what made you believe that that was actually possible for you?
I saw people who were not like me, not in my profession, but who looked like me. I saw people doing it. I saw people online, maybe they were in IT or maybe they were, you know, teaching English in a foreign, maybe they were doing something different, but they were still out there and they were traveling. And I remember watching this one video of um, a Black professional. I think he was in IT, and he was living in Rwanda. And he was
Oh, wow.
honestly, I'm doing half work, half bird watching because I keep just looking out the window. And I was like, that is my life. That is what I want to be doing. So I think at first it was just kind of seeing that. And then also knowing that throughout my life, I had already made a lot of changes. Like sometimes when we're in the middle of a crossroads or we're kind of moving up into a different level of our lives, we have amnesia about all the other major changes that we've ever overcome. And I just kind of started going back and showing myself no, you made this big decision to stop here and switch here and change here, and you completely changed your life over here. And so I also kind of built up my own confidence at the same time of you've done this before. This is just another version of you doing it again.
Yeah. So tell me what that looks like for you. Tell me what that nomadic lifestyle actually looks like for you.
Yeah. I mean, now it looks different than it looked then. So when I first left, I was working 2 days a week in medicine and I was off the other 5 days. And so I would spend a lot of time just like traveling, just exploring whichever country I was living in at the time. I had a lot of hobbies. So I would just kind of be dibbling, dabbling. I love to exercise and spend time in nature. So I'll be doing all of those things. And then my family really loves travel too. So they would be visiting and we'd be hanging out as well. And I started Nomad MD 2 years after I left abroad. I left the US, and because people would like contact me and have their friends contact me, like, there's this doctor, she's moving abroad or she's been living abroad. Why don't you hang out with her? And why don't you ask her how you can do it? And so I was already kind of doing what I'm doing now in terms of like helping doctors really digitize their medical expertise, helping them to work remotely in a way that will allow them to work less and to live anywhere. So I was doing it for free. And after a while, I was like, I should be getting paid for this. This is not something you should keep doing for free. And so once I started Nomad MD, it changed a little bit in that I now had this business and was kind of focused on that. So I actually cut down to 1 day a week in terms of the medicine side of things. And so I could do a day of focusing on the coaching business. But other than that, wine has always been a big interest of mine since I was in medical school, but it's similar to medicine. It takes like over 10 years to reach the top of the wine industry. So it's been a long time coming. So I spend a lot of time, like currently in wine regions, so that I expand my knowledge there. But it's in other ways, it's really like I told you, my mom's coming to Italy to hang out with me next week. A lot of things are kind of similar, but it's just that piece of like doing a little bit less of medicine and a little bit more of everything else.
I love that. It's like doing a little bit less of medicine, but a little bit more of living and just enjoying what life has to offer. So when you started thinking about the reducing the hours, working less, living more intentionally, living in various countries and not necessarily sticking to the one place or the one job, and so essentially practicing medicine slightly differently, you talked about the gentleman that was bird watching half the time and practicing medicine half the time, practicing IT, I think you said half the time. But what were you looking for specifically? What did you actually want your life to look like?
Well, a few years before I left the US, I had taken a trip with my sister to Thailand. And while we were sitting on Kata Beach, I had opened up my journal, and there was a moment on the beach that I came to the realization that this was my life. Like something about that moment, I was like, this is exactly my life. And I said, I should be like, my normal life should be this. And then the 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks a year, 3 weeks a year, that work life, that's what should happen 2 or 3 weeks a year. So everything was flipped, and that's where I realized actually, right now I have off 2 days a week. I was spending it doing documentation. I was not really off, but I was like, I really should be working 2 days a week and actually be off 5 days a week. So that was always my goal. I was like, everything should be flipped. That would give me the leisure, the freedom, and the time that I really needed to live.
Yeah. Was it anything that you were afraid of in even making that decision for yourself?
Yeah, I was afraid of going broke and having to live under a bridge in another country. That was like my big fear. Like it didn't make logical sense, but it was like everything just goes wrong and I'm broke and I live under a bridge in like Ecuador. I don't know. Like it was just, it was like this financial kind of fear, because I feel like it's something that's so like drilled into us that money is really, really important. So anything that jeopardizes, your financial security in any way should be avoided, and it should be something that you run away from. And so what I did with that fear was I just turned it on its head. I told myself that just being afraid to even think about it was not an option, because I knew the life that I really wanted. So I asked myself, how could living and working abroad be the way that you fast track yourself to financial independence? And when I gave my brain that problem to solve. So when it had that problem to solve, it was like, whoa, wait, hold on. That could work. And that's what I did. Like it really was able to catapult me to that level, because at that point, I already knew how to manage my money. I was already saving 50 to 60% of my income at that time, or investing that amount. And so, once I left the US, my compensation didn't change, but my expenses dropped by a third. But I had such a higher quality of life and so much more time to live. So it had a big impact on my finances as well.
I have to say that your journey, following your journey, talking to you, getting to know you a bit better, and just listening to your podcast and just following you on Instagram and all the ways that we connect, I am so fascinated by what you have been able to do, because I think a lot of people who have that interest, fear really does keep them back from exploring even what's possible. And so it's just not something that people will give themselves permission to even dream of or think about or explore in any way. And the fact that you've been able to talk about those fears and talk about the fact that you had those same fears as well, and you've been able to find ways around those, and actually the reality wasn't half as bad as what you thought it was going to be. You didn't end up under a bridge in Ecuador. So it just really is a testament to the fact that this could work and people can do this if they want to. So one of the other things that I think we really connect on is around this idea. I talk about quite a lot about sustainable success, and I feel it's not just about doing less, but it's more about alignment. It's more about matching your reality with the dreams that you have for yourself and the lifestyle that you want to actually live and the values that you have. And, you mentioned about time freedom, and you were able to make that happen by choosing this lifestyle. And that has become a sustainable lifestyle for you. So can you break down for the high achieving woman who's listening to this, what does sustainable success mean for you in practice?
So for me, sustainable success means that the way that you elevate yourself, your definition and your version of success in life is something that feels light. It feels like joy. It feels like peace. It feels like wholeness. It feels good in your body, in your mind, in your spirit. Like you could wrap yourself in a blanket with it. That's to me how it feels. It doesn't feel like being fake. It doesn't feel like you have to perform. It doesn't feel like you're following somebody else's timeline or their version or their scripts, or you're hustling to do it and now you're exhausted. Because however you start or carry out your success, that's how you're going to feel at the end. And I don't want to be at the end of my life or the end of a particular accomplishment, exhausted and burnt out and like, what's next? So I could continue the whole race all over again. So I think it's really about choosing like how you want to live and have joy and leisure and work. And to me, they all feel similar. Like I think we like in our culture, we've kind of came up with this idea of work that it's like this grinding thing. And now for me, like work is something that is so fun. I'm not going to say like, oh, every single task I ever do in my life or my business, I'm like, some days I'm like, I really don't want to post. I don't know what I want to say, but like, but in general, like I've never had more fun doing medicine. I've never had my one day of psychiatry. I'm like getting on the computer, like, what are we doing? Like, who are we seeing? Like, because it's a different connection that you have with your patients, with your clients, when you get to choose each and every one of them, when you get to have the relationships that you have. And when that work that you do is work that you've chosen intentionally and consciously, and you've chosen where you want to do it, how you want to do it, and how long you're going to do it. You've chosen how much money you're going to make from it, right? And everything outside of that time is also you doing what you want to do. So I think for me, that's the type of success that I want to have. And that's what I want my success to feel like.
I really love that. And I think it's really about giving what I'm hearing from you is like giving ourselves space and freedom to explore other things in our lives outside of work. Like when work is totally all consuming, there's no space for creativity. There's no space for joy. There's no space for family. There's no space for anything other than work. And so the brightest brains are going to become exhausted by that eventually. And so it's really about giving our brains a break, a chance to do something different, a chance to tap into a different side of our brains, that creative side, and do something different, do something fun. Like you said, spend time in nature, recharge your batteries. I feel like I almost cannot imagine a life that is fulfilling where that doesn't happen. Because for me, I'm just speaking for myself, I need that. I need a break. I need something different. I need to be able to do something different. And then I can show up for work the way I want to show up for work and do a smashing job. And so it sounds like that has been one of the main contributors to your own kind of sustainable success, in that you've given yourself that space to explore other things and live outside of work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think to your point, I think many of us want that, if not all of us want and need that type of versatility, right, in our day-to-day lives. Like for me, that's part of what travel is. Like there's no day that's the same, right? I'm going to walk down that street instead of that street, and I'm going to see something that I've never seen before. And to me, that newness, that creates a different type of presence for me. And it reminds me like, oh, I'm alive. There's that creativity that we get to bring into our work and our business. But like you said, we only get to bring it in when we've created the space to allow it to enter.
Absolutely. So when you redesigned your career, what surprised you the most, in the best way, about how your life actually changed?
Probably... that was a lot. But I think it was probably, I think I was just surprised that it could feel so good. Like, I think especially being in medicine, you can't even, if you're in those circles or you go into a physician Facebook group, forbid, like the angst, the depression, the burnout, like it's everywhere in medicine. 50 to 60% of doctors are burnt out. Like you see it everywhere. And so to me, to build a life where I still get to do the thing that I always wanted to do since I was 8 years old, I still get to be a doctor, but I just get to do it in my own way. And every time I do it, I have joy. To me, it's like, wow, that is so cool to me.
My next question is around the fact that most high achieving women, we are high achieving women, are taught to fit their lives around their careers. So what you are talking about is building a career around the life that you want. So how do those two approaches create different outcomes?
Yeah. I think that when you build your life around your career, you find that you don't have much of a life, or the
Yeah.
life that you do have, it's rushed. You don't feel fulfilled as much. You feel like you're missing important things. Maybe it's with your family, with your children. Maybe you're missing important things with your spouse or your partner, maybe for yourself. Like there's things that you're missing in terms of your mental health, your physical health, or even just like for me, like spiritual development is really important. Maybe there's some aspects that are missing there, but somewhere along the way, something feels like um, it's not aligned. It's not the way that it should be. Typically, you feel very like exhausted and burdened um, and trapped because once work is the center of everything, the second thing that usually follows is either that you feel a lot of financial pressure or you feel a lot of pressure to like get to a certain position or title or place, and it just kind of takes over everything else. So I feel like when you flip it, you find that there's so much more like breath and life to your day to day. You find that your relationships are stronger, they're more fulfilling, you feel more complete, like in and of yourself, because you have more time and space for not just the like work or I call it like meaningful work because I don't like
Yeah.
working just to work. Like meaningful work where you feel good doing it. There's like an intellectual challenge, there's some creativity in it, and you feel like you're making an impact or you're able to live out your life purpose like within the things that you do. So you're doing some kind of meaningful work, and in all of that you still have this space for things that are even not that. Things that allow you to be creative just for the hell of being creative, just for having fun and being playful and just leisure and joy. Like you even have space to do absolutely nothing, like nothing at all. So I think
Yeah.
when you have a life like that, I think it just honestly feels better. It just feels more complete. And I believe that your life should be that center. And I put work around the cracks. Like if I'm going to put something around the cracks, it's going to be that work. And for me, that's the perfect amount of work that allows me to still have that meaningful impact and build wealth and live out my purpose at the same time.
I really like that. I really like how you've described the fact that you can have, maybe you've got a purpose or purposes. I think that could be plural too. But when you are building your life and then work around that, as opposed to the other way around, which is that work is kind of taken over and life has to fit into the cracks. We fit work into the cracks and we really focus on that holistic, fulfilling purposeful life and give that the precedence and then fit everything else around it. And I think that has been the one kind of eye-opener for me over the years, because growing up being the high achiever, you're taught to just prioritize the grind, prioritize the chase, the achievements, the accolades, the prestige. But when you can step off of that treadmill, one of my previous podcast guests talked about being, she was doing her PhD. She's recently finished it actually, but she was doing her PhD and she became a mum during that process. And she said, Michelle, it's like I was on one conveyor belt and now I've jumped onto another one because I just don't fit. I just don't fit on that one anymore. And it's like when you have the courage to kind of step away from that trajectory that everybody else has set for you, the expectations have set for you, that, you have had little say in, but you have somehow followed along that whole time. When you have the courage to step off of that and onto a conveyor belt which looks different, which feels different, which feels good, then why not? Why not do that? Why not make a decision to choose yourself?
Yeah, I think 100%. And I think sometimes also we don't see the yeses that we've given along the way. We never get to this point because someone made us. It's like they gave us the idea and then we just kind of kept saying yes, 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 yes. And I think having that like responsibility, taking on that responsibility, like I brought myself here. That's what I did when I was in that neurologist's office. Like I didn't put it on. Sometimes we put it on the system. I'm not saying that the healthcare system or other systems, whether we're talking about the governments of the countries, I'm not saying that systems don't play their role. They do. But in that neurologist's office, no system was going to save me. What helped me was taking responsibility for all the yeses that I made that got me to that point in that office. And because of taking that responsibility, I knew that I had the power to say no. And I think that's where the courage comes from.
I think it's that idea of just remembering that you can actually lead yourself differently, because like you get into this routine and it becomes so much part of the norm, the subconscious, like we don't even realize it, that we just, we don't even realize that we've given our agency up. And like you said, we've just been saying yes to everything, every opportunity. And sometimes I talk about opportunities versus obligations. Like sometimes we think something is an opportunity, but it really isn't. It's disguised as an obligation that we just think we have to say yes to, because if we don't, we're going to miss out on this, we're going to miss out on that. And we just have to, give ourselves permission to say no sometimes, to really enforce those boundaries. And it's not easy. Nobody's saying it's easy. There's all kinds of limiting beliefs that will get in the way, and fears and sometimes real barriers that will get in the way, right? But it's about having the courage to lead yourself differently. And that is the journey that I'm on now. And it feels amazing. It feels absolutely amazing to kind of reclaim that agency. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So for a woman who's been taught that ambition and presence are at odds with each other, like they cannot coexist. You either need to be ambitious and in pursuit of everything, or you need to be like, not interested in achievement and just focusing on being present, that these two things can't exist. And that you have to choose one or the other. What would you say to her? What would you say to that woman who is feeling like she's got to make that choice?
Hmm. I would say that that's a false decision that I think actually benefits a lot of other people other than you. I think it's this false dichotomy that's just been created because what a lot of people are going to kind of decide, especially if you live in the West, is that then I really just need to focus on being driven and being and getting money, and that's what ambition has to look like. Um, but I think when you really consider it, you see that they're one and the same. They really can be one and the same if it's what you create. Um, for you to be ambitious, and we talked about like sustainable success, for you to have that type of success, you need to be ambitious. But also for you to have that type of sustainable success, you have to be present because otherwise, how are you going to be conscious about how you're living out each day? How are you going to be conscious about what you want to spend your time doing, about the value of your time, about the value of your relationships, and um, how do you even like go about making decisions in your work and in your business from a place of clarity and from a place of thinking about the good of not only yourself, but the people you're helping and of all humanity? How do you do that without presence? Like they have to come together, I think, for you to not only live well, but for you to work well.
Ooh, I just love that. I love that because it almost creates this picture of this isn't a choice that you have to make. This is actually the definition of sustainable success. Being able to be ambitious, pursue the things, but doing that while being present, while understanding what your values are, while being clear about those things and being really clear on your priorities as well. And I feel like when you embrace the idea of sustainable success, it becomes so much easier to accept those things because, by definition, in order for your success, i.e., the ambition and all that, to be sustainable, then you need the clarity. You need to understand what it is that you actually want. You need to understand what matters to you, what your values are, and you need to be present for all of those things. And so it almost gives you permission to pursue that type of success. Those two things come together and there's no separating them. There is no choice that you have to make. You can have them both. And I really love that. You talk about living by design, but so many of us are drifting, following that default path. The expectations are keeping us stuck. The culture is promoting that kind of lifestyle, the grind. How do you actually start to design your life by intention?
I think it starts with considering, even at this present moment, how you spend your time. Because I really do think that time shows us what's valuable to us. You can give me a list and you can rift on like, oh, what's important to me? My family, God, this, that. If somebody breaks down their schedule for me, I will tell them what's really important to them. Maybe they haven't even had any communication with their higher power in the last week, or maybe they haven't been able to see their family, or maybe, and it's not about a judgment. It's just about showing ourselves the truth. Like I go back to that, taking responsibility for your life and being really honest and transparent with yourself, because if you can't be real with you, it's not going to work. So I think the first thing is really taking a look at your schedule and seeing what's truly valuable to you. And then if it doesn't look the way that you want it to look, if it's not reflective or not in alignment with what your true values are or what you want your life to look like, then that's when I say, okay, you know the place to start and start imagining. Like take 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, an hour a week to start imagining what would my schedule look like? What would my Tuesday look like if I was living in alignment, like with my values, with what I want my life and my work to look like? Because until we can imagine it, we can't create it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like the point that you've made about show me your schedule and I'll show you what's important, because it's so true. I think a lot of times people get caught up in what sounds good, what they think other people want to hear, but actually being honest with yourself by looking at your calendar, looking at where your time is going, auditing that. How does that match up with your values? How does that mash up with what you actually care about? Because if all of your time is being consumed by things that you don't care about, then it's going to be impossible to live a fulfilling life. And so really starting there, looking at the time, looking at where that's going, looking at if that's aligning with the things that matter to you, I think is such a good point and such a, it really is the place that people should start. Because I think, like you said, time is a valuable resource. Like time is more valuable than achievements. It's more valuable than money. It's more valuable than, titles and accolades. And so how do you help doctors? And I think this applies to mother scholars as well. But how do you help high achieving women start to see time differently?
I think it starts with this process that we just talked about. And a lot of times, by the time I actually meet with them, they've done some of that work. Like they see where their current life and work and schedule, and even just the way that they're living, the way that life feels for them is not in alignment with what they really want. They really want that time freedom. They really want the location flexibility, even if it's not to live abroad, but it's to be able to pick up their kiddo from preschool on time. It's to be able to take care of their aging parent. It's to be able to go to yoga class, at 11 o'clock in the morning before the rush. Like, it's to be able to live in a way that they truly want. And so really the way that I help them is to start to allow that new structure of what they want life to look like, allow it to actually take shape. How is it that they're actually going to fund this new life? What will their work look like? What will their finances look like? Right? How can they work in a way that is expansive, but it also brings in the financial abundance that they're actually looking for? Because a lot of times we think that we need to start over completely. Like we need I must become an IT specialist now. That's what the guy was doing who was looking at the birds. Like, no, that doesn't mean that's my path, right? We have so many skills, so much expertise, and it's really about how we look at the life and the gifts and the talents that we've been blessed to have, and how we are able to shape those into work that is fulfilling, into work that allows us to have the money that we need and that we want to take care of ourselves and our families and our futures. And so it's really allowing them to go through that process so that they can build that type of work structure, that type of business that gives them the freedom that they want. Because it's the place where, for me, the financial freedom, the time freedom, the location freedom, and the psychological freedom, like the freedom to know that you can build and have any kind of life that you want, is putting all those pieces together from them, putting all those pieces together for them really doing that work collaboratively so they don't feel like they're doing it alone. But that's a major focus of our work, is in creating the work, the business, the career structure that allows them the type of freedom in their lives that they really want. And it can look different ways. For some people, it's building a telemedicine practice. For other people, it's building a coaching practice. It's building a consulting service where, they're only consulting to this particular patient population or client population. So it can look different ways. For some of my docs that I work with, they're going into other industries. They're using their, clinical expertise to then consult to AI companies. So there's so many different ways that it can take depending on your expertise and your interests and where your passions really lie. But at the end of the day, it's really about creating work that, like we talked about, is sustainable, is fulfilling, it brings you wealth, and it makes you feel good.
Absolutely. So if a mother scholar listening to this is thinking, I'm listening to Kristine and I want that type of freedom. I want to have presence through living this nomadic lifestyle, but I don't know where to begin because I've got a family to consider, I've got children to consider, I've got a husband or a partner to consider. What's one question that she should ask herself before she takes any steps forward?
Why do I want this? Your why will carry you every step of the way, because when you really take a look at your why, I think especially as like a mom, I think culture, and I say this as someone who's very close to their mom, but I think as a culture, moms are taught to kind of put themselves last. And so, it almost feels like when you're doing something that might feel good for you, you kind of wonder if you're leaving the people you love or other people behind or other important things behind. But I think naturally, moms are never doing that. Like they're never actually doing that. And so I would advise for you to look at your why, because I bet that this shift, and it doesn't even have to be being nomadic. A lot of the moms that I work with, I do know nomadic moms actually, but most of the moms that I work with, they're not nomadic, but they have the flexibility to be where they want to be in the world, right? If they want to take their kids abroad for the summer, they can do that and still be making money because that's the way that their work is set up. But it's really about how this shift is going to benefit your spouse. Like, how will it make your husband's life and his work easier? How is it going to expand the knowledge and the breadth and the experience of life for your children? To spend more time together, to have more presence with you, to see that mommy doesn't just work all the time, but, when she's here, she's really here. Like, we're really connecting. Like, how will your why actually benefit every person that you come in contact with? Not only you, not only your family, but how is it going to actually benefit your patient or client interactions? Even someone that you meet on the street, if you're more present, if you're more at peace, if you have more joy, right? Like, how is it going to just benefit how you just shine your light as you live and, exist throughout the world? Like, it's really about sitting on that why, and that why will allow you to have the kind of heartfelt conversations that you need to have with your spouse or your family or the people that you love in that transition.
I really love that. And it has been just so amazing to hear you speak about this, but also to just follow your journey. Like, Kristine is really doing this. Like, she is literally country hopping and making it work and enjoying her journey and enjoying her life. And so this is not a performance for this podcast. This is literally her real life. And I am so grateful for you to come on here and talk about it and share with us, because I think it's one of the things that as academics, as clinicians, we don't really think we can do. I think that most people think that once you get to a certain stage in your career, it's about putting roots down and just kind of like, blossoming. But actually, what you've shown us is that you can blossom in other places. And I think for me, it all comes back down to giving yourselves options. And that could be where you live, or it could just be how you spend your time. Giving yourself options will set you free. Not to sound dramatic or anything, but that is the truth, like giving ourselves options. So for anybody listening to us and who's just as fascinated as I am about your lifestyle and how, that maybe they may be interested in pursuing this. Maybe they just want to give themselves a bit more time freedom, a bit more space. How can they learn more about you, and where can they follow you online?
They can follow me on Instagram at the Nomad MDs, on Facebook at the Nomad MDs, and at my website, thenomadmd.com.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Kristine. It has been such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, I want you to know this. You don't need to have it all figured out before you take your next step. This work is all about learning to lead yourself first in ways that honor your capacity, your work, your home, and yourself without burning out in the process. If you'd like to continue the conversation beyond the podcast, you're warmly invited to join Scholarly Mamas The Letter, a quiet monthly newsletter for mother scholars who value purpose beyond titles, presence at home, and peace within. You can sign up at scholarlymamas.com. And if you're feeling stuck, stretched, or just not where you want to be, you can book a free 30-minute call to help you gain clarity and explore what support might look like in this season to get from where you are to where you want to be. You can also connect with me on social media at Mrs. Mummy PhD, where I share reflections on ambition, motherhood, sustainable self-leadership, all the things, for high-achieving mamas like yourself. This, mama, is the quiet work of scholarly motherhood, and these are our journeys of becoming.